They said the blood moon would never rise again, but the night proved them liars. The sky bled red over Varian's keep. Wind howled through the towers. Elena woke, heart racing, skin damp with sweat. Dreams again. No. Warnings. She saw a wolf with two shadows, one white as frost, one black as the void. Both were Kaelin, both were hers. One whispered her name in love, the other in hunger. Thunder rolled. Kaelin stood by the window, runes on his back glowing faintly under rain-slick light. His voice was distant. It wasn't a dream. Then what? She breathed. A reminder. He turned, eyes gleaming like stormlight. The curse never left, he said. It just learned to sleep. Below, candles guttered out. From the crypt came a voice. Soft, ancient, cruel. The king who breaks his crown for love will wear his heart as his chain. By dawn the storm had passed. But the world had changed. The oracle of Valespire had awoken. And far beyond the castle walls, Prince Eric Dravane watched the blood-red sunrise. So, he murmured, the cursed Alpha still breathes. The moon forgot to shine that night, but its shadow remembered everything. Begin an unforgettable journey, thrilling and irresistible. Subscribe for forbidden love, shadowed wolves and dark secrets. Chapter 1, The Oracle's Whisper. Rain lingered on the battlements long after the storm had gone, dripping like tears from the stone gargoyles that guarded Varian's keep. The dawn that followed was grey and hollow, the kind of morning that felt neither alive nor dead, suspended in a fragile stillness, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Inside the Alpha's chambers, Kaelin sat alone by the cold hearth. The firewood had burned down to a ghostly ash, and the air carried the metallic scent of the night's storm. He stared into the dying embers, their faint glow reflected in the mirror of his wolf's eyes. Eyes that had seen kingdoms fall and curses bloom like rot beneath the skin of the world. He heard the door creak open, but didn't move. "You didn't come to bed," Elena's voice came softly, warm but strained, like sunlight through a cracked window. He didn't answer, only turned the ring in his fingers, a simple band, blackened by heat and scarred by claw marks. It was the crown sigil, the mark of the true Alpha of the Blood Moon Pack. A crown forged not of gold, but of sacrifice. Elena approached quietly, her bare feet whispering across the floor. Her dark hair spilled over her night robe, damp from her earlier bath. She sat beside him, tracing her fingers over the scar along his forearm, the one that pulsed faintly beneath his skin, alive with the faint hum of magic. "You feel it again," she said, not asking, knowing. "The curse." "No," Kaelin murmured. "The call." He looked up, meeting her gaze. In her brown eyes he saw both defiance and fear, the contradiction that had drawn him to her from the beginning. She was a woman who had every reason to break, yet never did. "What kind of call?" she asked. "The Oracle," he said simply. "She's awake." Elena's breath hitched. The name carried weight. The Oracle of Valespire had not spoken in 2 centuries, not since the curse that had nearly ended the blood moon line. Legends said she could speak across time, her voice threading through the blood of Alphas like a warning in their dreams. "You think she speaks to you," Elena whispered. "She doesn't speak," Kaelin said quietly, his eyes distant. "She remembers." By noon the castle stirred. Messengers rushed through wet courtyards, carrying scrolls sealed in crimson wax. Servants whispered of strange sounds beneath the keep, whispers rising from the crypt, voices that did not belong to the living. Kaelin descended the stone stairwell with Lucien, his beta and oldest friend, walking in silence beside him. Lucien's golden hair was tied back, his expression sharp, though his eyes held unease. "You're sure you want to go down there, Kyle?" "The oracle doesn't summon without reason," Kalen said. "Neither does death." Lucien stopped halfway down the stairs, lowering his voice. "Elena worries. She says you've been changing again." "She's right," Kalen murmured. "I can feel it, the power, the curse, whatever name you want to give it. It's waking." Lucien swallowed hard. "Then maybe you should stay away from the crypt. The last time you heard her voice, you nearly—" "I know what happened," Kalen cut in, his tone flat. "But the last time, I didn't have her." Lucien nodded slowly, understanding. Elena had anchored him once. Her presence, her blood, her stubborn heart. But even anchors could sink when the tide grew cruel enough. They reached the crypt doors, 2 slabs of obsidian carved with runes that pulsed faintly, responding to Kalen's presence. He pressed his palm against them. The runes flared red, then parted with a hiss of ancient air. Inside, the chamber was lit only by candles, tall, thin, and endless, stretching into darkness. At its center lay the oracle's veil, a pool of still, black water. No reflection stirred its surface, no matter how bright the flame. Kalen knelt beside it. "You called me," he said quietly. The water rippled once. Then a voice, soft, feminine, ageless, filled the air. Not called, remembered. Kalen's pulse quickened. "Why now?" "Because the curse you broke was never yours alone." "What do you mean?" "Another wears your shadow." The words struck like thunder. The chamber trembled. The candle flames bent inward, as if inhaling fear. Lucien drew his blade. "What is she saying, Kyle?" Kalen stood slowly, his heart pounding. "She means someone else carries the curse now. And she will die for it," the oracle whispered. Kalen froze. Elena. The veil went black. The tower balcony, that night. Elena stood at the balcony, the wind tangling her hair as storm clouds gathered once again. Below, the valley stretched wide and still, unaware of the prophecy that had just been spoken. Kalen appeared behind her, his voice rough. "You can't go to the village tomorrow." She turned, surprised. "Why not?" "Because something is coming for you." Her brow furrowed. "Kalen, you're scaring me." "Good," he said quietly. "You should be—" He stepped closer, cupping her face with a trembling hand. "I will protect you," he swore, "even if it kills me." She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "No. You protect the people, Kale. That's what alphas do." He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Then what do kings do?" She paused. "They die for love." The wind howled, swallowing their words as lightning tore across the sky. Unseen in the storm's shadow, a figure watched from the ridge beyond the keep. A man cloaked in black armor, his silver eyes glinting beneath the hood. "Prince Eric Dravan." "Found you," he murmured, lips curving into a smile that promised war. Chapter 2. The Prince Who Hunts Shadows. The storm had broken by morning, but its ghost remained. Clouds hung low over the valley, heavy and bruised, as if the sky itself remembered the thunder. The scent of rain clung to the soil, mingled with something older, iron, smoke, and the faint trace of wolf's blood. Beyond the valley, where the mountains rose like broken teeth, the Dravane fortress stood, a kingdom carved from the bones of enemies and crowned in ash. Inside its throne room, Prince Eric Dravan leaned against a window of black glass, watching lightning crawl along the horizon. His armor, still slick with rain, gleamed faintly in the dim light. He was beautiful in a dangerous way. Sharp edges and quiet hunger, the kind of man born to rule, yet cursed to destroy everything he touched. "You followed him?" he asked, his voice low, controlled, but threaded with something feral. A cloaked man knelt before him. Varin, his most loyal shadow. His eyes were dark as oil, and his words came like smoke. "Yes, my prince. He has rebuilt the Blood Moon Keep. The woman remains with him." Eric's jaw tightened. He turned from the window, the movement deliberate, restrained. "The woman," he murmured. "Elena." Varin nodded once. "She bears the mark, my lord, the same sigil that once belonged to his bloodline." For a long moment, silence stretched between them. Then Eric exhaled slowly, resting his gloved hands on the obsidian table before him. "So the curse passed on," he said, just as the oracle warned. Varin hesitated. "Do you mean to claim her, my prince?" Eric's eyes lifted, silver and cold like moonlight on a blade. "Claim her?" he repeated. "No." He paused. "I mean to free her, even if I have to destroy him to do it." The Dravan war room. The war council gathered as dawn bled pale over the fortress spires. Tapestries of old battles lined the walls, and the scent of smoke and steel filled the air. Around the table sat General Malric, scarred and broad-shouldered, Lady Corin, strategist and Eric's half-sister, and Talia, the fortress healer, whose quiet eyes saw more than anyone dared to speak. "You can't be serious," Malric grunted. "The Blood Moon lands are cursed. No man crosses that border and returns sane. Then it's a good thing I'm not sending a man," Eric replied coolly. Corin's lips twitched. "You're sending yourself." He didn't deny it. "The curse is tied to her," Eric said, pacing slowly, "and through her, to him. If Kaelin dies, the power dies with him, but if she dies first—" Talia's hand tightened on the table. "The curse will consume him." Eric nodded. "Exactly." A murmur rippled through the council. Corin studied her brother carefully, her tone measured but sharp. "You talk of destroying Kaelin, but your eyes say otherwise. What aren't you telling us?" Eric stopped pacing. His expression softened for a breath, the hard lines of his face shadowed by memory. "Once," he said quietly, "Kaelin and I were brothers." The room fell silent. Even the candles seemed to flicker slower. "The same blood that cursed him runs in my veins," Eric continued. "And if I don't end him now, the curse will find me next, that same day." Elena stood in the garden courtyard, watching the last petals of the night-blooming roses fall into the wet earth. The garden had always been her refuge, alive with the scent of lilac and rain, a fragile corner untouched by war. But peace, she'd learned, was only ever a pause between storms. "You shouldn't be out here alone," a voice said behind her. She turned. It was Lyra, Kaelin's younger sister, her silver hair braided tight, eyes bright with quiet intelligence. Lyra was only 19, but carried herself like a woman twice her age, sharp, loyal, and utterly unafraid to speak her mind. "You sound like him," Elena teased softly. Lyra smiled faintly. "Maybe because I see what he doesn't, which is—" Lyra's gaze softened. "That you're the only thing keeping him from losing himself again." Elena looked away, tracing her fingers along the wet petals. "And what happens when I can't hold him anymore?" Lyra didn't answer. Her silence said everything. By evening, the rain returned. The castle torches hissed in the downpour as a rider galloped through the gates, his horse nearly collapsing from exhaustion. "Message for the Alpha!" Kaelin was in the council hall when they brought the man in, a young messenger with eyes wide as moons and blood crusted on his cloak. He fell to one knee, trembling. "My lord," he gasped, "he's coming." Kaelin rose slowly from his seat. "Who? The Prince of Dravane?" The room froze. Lucian exchanged a look with Kaelin. "You told me he was dead." Kaelin's expression darkened. "I thought he was—" He turned to the messenger. "How far?" "A day's ride, maybe less. He carries no army, only his shadows." Kaelin's gaze drifted to the window, where lightning flickered against the mountains. That night, Elena dreamed. She stood in a field of white flowers, the moon heavy and low above her. A man waited in the distance, cloaked in shadow, his silver eyes glimmering through the mist. When she reached for him, he whispered her name. Not like Kaelin did, but like a memory she'd forgotten. Elena. She woke with a cry, heart racing, Kaelin beside her instantly. "What happened?" he asked, his voice rough with sleep. She hesitated, trembling. "I saw him." "Who?" "The man from my dream, the one with the silver eyes." Kaelin froze. His heart dropped into silence. "That's not a dream," he said. "That's a warning." Outside, thunder cracked across the valley, and far beyond the keep, a lone rider in black rode toward the gates, rain carving rivers down his face. Prince Eric Dravani had come to claim what was once his. Chapter 3. The Shadow Between Brothers. The gates of Blood Moon Keep groaned open beneath a bruised sky. Lightning stitched silver veins through the clouds as hooves struck the courtyard stones, echoing like the heartbeat of something ancient that refused to die. Rain cascaded down the rider's cloak, pooling around boots black with mud and memory. When he raised his head, the torches caught the line of a scar down his cheek, an old wound healed without forgiveness. Prince Eric Dravani had arrived. Kaelin watched from the balcony above, his expression carved in stone. He felt every drop of rain as if it burned. Once they had shared the same blood oath under the light of the same moon. Once he would have called Eric brother. Now the man below was the embodiment of everything he had lost. "Open the courtyard," Kaelin ordered quietly. No guards, no blades. Lucian, ever his second, turned sharply. "He's not here for talk, Kael." "No," Kaelin said. "He's here for truth, the courtyard." When Kaelin descended, Eric was already waiting, tall, poised, the rain catching in his hair, silver eyes glinting beneath the hood's edge. "You shouldn't have come," Kaelin said, stopping a few paces away. "And yet here I stand," Eric replied. "You always did underestimate the will of a Dravan." A bitter smile ghosted over Kaelin's lips. "Funny. I was once one." Lightning cracked overhead. For a moment the two men were mirrored in light, one scarred by exile, the other by guilt. Eric's voice dropped lower. "Do you even remember the night you vanished?" "I remember everything," Kaelin said. "The fire, the screams, the betrayal that came from my own blood." Eric's jaw tightened. "I never wanted the throne. You know that." "Then why did you take it?" "Because if I hadn't, they would have killed us both." Rain hissed between them. Silence followed, deep and raw. Kaelin stepped closer. "You think that justifies the curse you left me with?" Eric's eyes darkened. "I didn't curse you." "No," Kaelin said. "But you didn't stop them either." Inside the hall. Elena stood at the edge of the hall, hidden behind the pillars. Lyra beside her, eyes wide with tension. "That man," Lyra whispered. His voice, why does it sound like Kael's? "Because it carries the same weight." She couldn't look away. Even drenched and battle-torn, Eric carried himself like a king born of storms. But what chilled her wasn't his power. It was how his eyes softened when they found her. As if he already knew her. As if, in another life, he'd loved her. When the hall emptied, Eric followed Kaelin into the Chamber of Echoes, a room beneath the keep lined with relics of their past. There, among broken swords and wolf banners, their truth waited. "You know why I'm here," Eric said. You want the woman. I want to end this curse before it devours us both." Kaelin turned, slow and cold. "The curse was born the night you spilled my blood." Eric flinched, the faintest crack in his control. "I thought you were dead. Gods, Kael, what would you have done?" "Fought for me." Eric's silence answered for him. "You were always the favored son," Kaelin continued softly. "I was the heir in name. You were the heir in heart. The elders loved you. The court obeyed you. And when the moon demanded sacrifice, they looked at me. That wasn't my choice." "No," Kaelin said, stepping closer. "But it was your crown." The words hung between them like a blade. Later that night, while the brothers argued beneath the earth, Elena wandered through the library, restless. A half-rotted chest caught her eye. Inside, beneath a pile of ruined parchments, she found a single sealed letter bearing the sigil of Dravan. Her name was written across it. "To the one who bears the mark of moon and blood, when the curse awakens, you will be the bridge between brothers, and the choice that ends them." Her hands trembled. She felt the faint pulse of her mark beneath her skin. The words glowed faintly, alive, as if written in moonlight. She didn't notice the figure in the doorway until he spoke. "That letter was never meant for your eyes," Eric said quietly. Elena spun, heart racing. "Then you should have burned it." He took a slow step closer. "Would you have believed the truth if I told you? Try me." Eric's expression was unreadable. "You're not just part of this curse, Elena. You're the key to breaking it." Down in the courtyard, thunder growled again. Kaelin stood alone, the rain washing over him as he stared toward the mountains. His wolf stirred beneath his skin, restless, sensing the fracture forming in the woman he loved. The air around him crackled. Jealousy, raw and violent, surged in his chest. "Not again," he whispered to the storm. "I won't lose her too." When the moon rose full that night, its light struck the sigil on Elena's wrist. The ink flared like silver fire crawling up her arm. She gasped, collapsing as visions burst behind her eyes. 2 boys under the same moon, one bleeding, one crowned, and a single voice whispering, "Only one wolf may rule the blood." She woke screaming. Both men came running. Kaelin reached her first, kneeling, gathering her in his arms. Eric froze at the threshold, his expression a war between fear and longing. Elena's eyes fluttered open. Between gasps, she whispered, "It's not over. The moon's chosen heir hasn't been named." Kaelin's grip tightened. Eric's voice cut through. "It matters to the curse." Kaelin rose slowly, facing him. "Then let the moon choose once more." Lightning split the sky. The curse stirred, and destiny demanded blood. Chapter 4. The moon's second trial. The night had teeth. Wind howled through the valley as though the gods themselves mourned what was coming. Inside Blood Moon Keep, the walls bled candlelight, soft, flickering, trembling as if afraid of the shadows gathering outside. Elena awoke in a fevered haze. The mark on her wrist burned like molten silver, the glow pulsing in rhythm with her heart. Somewhere far off, a wolf cried, a sound ancient and mourning, yet filled with hunger. The prophecy had begun to breathe again. They rode through the night, guided by stormlight and fear. Kaelin, Eric, Elena, and Lyra, each cloaked and silent, their horses slicing through mist-soaked air. At dawn, they reached the Valley of Mirrors, where the mountains split open like a wound. There, amid the ruins of an old temple, waited the Oracle of the Veil, a woman whose eyes had not seen daylight in a century. Her name was Seraphine, the last keeper of the moon's law. She stood before them barefoot, her long white hair moving as if caught in a current unseen. Her voice was a whisper that seemed to echo from the stones themselves. Two heirs born beneath one bloodline, she said. One cursed to rule, one fated to fall. And between them, the heart that binds the moon. Her gaze found Elena. You have seen the truth within your dreams, haven't you, child of the cursed bond? Elena's throat tightened. I saw a crown of bone, and a wolf made of light. Then the moon has shown you mercy. Kalin stepped forward, his voice hard. Tell us how to break it. Seraphine turned toward him slowly, smiling with sorrow. Curses born of blood cannot be undone without blood. Whose? Kalin demanded. The moon will decide at the trial. They were not alone in the valley. Among the cliffs, shadows moved, men with eyes like coals and skin marked by the same runes that carved the keep's ancient gate. The watchers, the priests of the forgotten moon. Bound to the curse, sworn to guard its cycle. One stepped forward, his armor black and etched with wolf sigils. No heir may face the trial without the blessing of the priestess, he intoned. Eric's voice was sharp. And where is she? A whisper rippled through the ranks. Then she emerged, Priestess Naira. Dark veils trailed behind her like smoke, her eyes two embers in a sea of shadow. Her presence bent the air, half divine, half monstrous. I am she, Naira said, and I know both your names, Kylan Dravanen, Eric Dravane, sons of the broken crown. Her gaze slid to Elena. And you, the heart between brothers, you should not have come. Why? Elena asked. Because your choice will end them both. The trial took place at the heart of the valley. There stood an ancient circle carved into the mountain stone, its lines glowing faintly beneath the moonlight. The watchers formed a ring around it, chanting in an old tongue. The air thrummed with power, low, ancient, hungry. Naira raised her hands, and fire like liquid silver spiraled upward, forming a column between the two brothers. Step forward, she commanded. Kalin and Eric entered the circle, eyes locked, every breath between them charged with years of grief and unspoken truth. The trial will decide who bears the moon's blood, Naira said, and who dies beneath it. The chant rose. The moon bled white fire across the stone. Elena's heart pounded as the mark on her wrist flared again. She could feel their wolves. Kalin's a storm of rage and fire, Eric's a wind of ice and control. The ground shuddered. The air thickened with magic. Then the wolves emerged. Kalin's form twisted into a massive obsidian-furred beast, eyes burning crimson. Eric's shifted into silver, sleek and cold, his gaze glinting with moonlight. When they collided, the valley itself screamed, claws raked stone, fire and frost tore the air apart. Elena ran forward, but Naira's hand shot out, stopping her. Do not interfere. They'll kill each other. That is the point, the heart's intervention. But when Kalin struck a final blow, his fangs buried deep in Eric's shoulder, something inside Elena broke. The mark on her wrist blazed so bright it seared the night. She screamed, her power erupting like a storm. The moonlight bent, the flames froze, every sound died. Kalin's eyes widened, reverting to human form as he fell to his knees. Eric staggered, panting, his blood glowing faintly silver. Elena's voice cut through the silence, trembling yet absolute. Enough. The moon will not take either of you tonight. The silver fire around them dimmed. The watchers fell to their knees. Even Naira bowed her head. But Seraphine's voice rose softly through the stillness. Then it has begun. The heart has chosen mercy, and mercy in this curse is rebellion. When dawn came, the valley lay quiet. The trial was over, but nothing was resolved. Kalin sat by the stream, the wound on his arm still glowing faintly from the curse's touch. Eric watched from the shadows, silent. Elena knelt beside Kaelin, her fingers brushing the mark. "Does it hurt?" "Only when I remember." She smiled faintly through tears. "Then forget, just for now." He looked at her, his hand trembling as it brushed her cheek. But when he leaned closer, a low growl cut through the moment. Eric's voice, cold as steel. "Be careful, brother. The moon's chosen doesn't belong to either of us." Kaelin rose slowly, his shadow stretching long across the light. "Then perhaps the moon should learn what happens when a man refuses to bow." The wind carried the echo of wolves. The curse had changed shape, and now it was moving toward war. Chapter 5. The Blood Oath of the Wolves. The morning broke not with peace, but with silence so thick it felt like mourning. Mist hung over the valley like a shroud, the world caught between breath and aftershock. Smoke rose from the ritual fires that had burned through the night, their embers fading against the first light of dawn. Kaelin stood alone on the ridge, cloak torn and damp with dew. Below him, the ruins of the trial circle glimmered faintly, silver scars carved into black stone, like veins of an old wound refusing to heal. He could still feel her pulse under his fingertips. Elena, the way her voice had commanded the moon to halt, the way her power had bent destiny itself for them, for him. Because he knew mercy always demanded a price. By midday, the watchers gathered once more. The valley floor was swept clean, the bodies of fallen wolves burned in sacred flame. The scent of ash and wolf blood lingered like memory. At the center stood Priestess Naira, her veils black as morning silk. Beside her, Seraphine, the oracle, held the old crown of the Dravan line, its metal tarnished, its jewels dim. Kaelin, Eric, and Elena were summoned to kneel before them. "The trial is complete," Naira declared, "but the curse remains. The moon still watches, waiting for the bond to break or be sealed in blood." Kaelin lifted his chin. "Then tell me what must be done." Naira's lips curved faintly, as though she pitied him. "There is one way to bind the curse before it consumes your line. The blood oath of the wolves, a vow forged in the union of power and sacrifice." Elena's brows furrowed. "Union?" Seraphine turned her hollow eyes toward her. "The moon calls for what it gave you both, life and fate. You must stand beneath its light together and give something equal in return." "And if we don't?" Eric asked sharply. "Then the curse will devour not just your souls, but your kind." The wind shifted, the fires dimmed. It was decided. When night fell, they descended into the caverns beneath the keep, into what was once known as the Hollow Kingdom, the underground city where the first Alphas forged their pacts with the moon. The walls glimmered faintly with veins of silver ore, reflecting torchlight like frozen stars. Statues lined the passage, wolf-headed kings and queens carved with reverence, each holding their hearts in open palms. Lyra whispered beside Elena as they walked. "They say no one who speaks the blood oath leaves unchanged." Changed how? The moon chooses what to take. When they reached the chamber, the air shimmered with power. A vast stone basin sat in the center, filled with water that glowed like liquid moonlight. The watchers encircled it, chanting in the ancient tongue. Seraphine raised her hands. "Step forward, heir of Dravan. Step forward, heart of the curse." Elena's pulse hammered. Kaelin took her hand, rough, calloused, warm. Their eyes met. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "I already did," he said softly. "The moment I chose you over my crown." The oracle's voice rose like thunder. "Repeat after me. Under moon and flame, blood and name, I bind my fate to thine." Kaelin's voice was steady, deep. Under moon and flame, blood and name, I bind my fate to thine. Elena echoed him, though her voice trembled. I bind my fate to thine. A blade was drawn, a silver dagger, curved like a crescent. Naira sliced Kaelin's palm, then Elena's. Blood dripped into the glowing basin, hissing as it touched the light. The water boiled, turned black, then silver again, alive with sparks. Elena gasped as pain surged through her veins, followed by a rush of warmth that stole her breath. She could feel him inside her thoughts now, not just near but within. Kaelin's voice, distant but clear, whispered across her mind. You see it too, don't you? The moon's heartbeat. Yes, then hold on. The light exploded. A torrent of silver fire consuming them both. For an instant, she saw everything. Kaelin's childhood, his mother's death, the betrayal of the court, Eric's vow, her own arrival in his world, all tangled in threads of light that wove themselves into something living. Then, darkness. When she awoke, dawn bled pale across the hollow kingdom. Kaelin sat beside her, shirt torn, breath ragged. His eyes were no longer crimson. They were a deep, stormy silver, mirroring hers. Elena reached out, touching his cheek. Kaelin, what happened? Seraphine's voice answered from the shadows. The Oathfire accepted your bond. The curse is no longer upon one. It is now shared between you. Elena's heart faltered. Shared? You are one. His death will be yours, and your blood will call his spirit. Kaelin stood slowly, jaw clenched. So that was the price. Naira's veil fluttered in the faint wind. There is always a price for love. Outside, Eric watched the dawn from the steps of the keep. His armor was still streaked with his brother's blood. He could feel it, the shift in the air, the bond sealed beneath the moon. And for the first time in his life, he felt utterly alone. Lyra approached, cautious. You should rest, my lord. Rest? Eric murmured. While my brother binds his fate to the woman who carries the curse that destroyed us. He did it for love. He turned to her sharply. And love has always been the cruelest weapon. He looked toward the valley, where the first light broke the mist. If the moon has chosen him, then let it see how I fight back. No more crowns in the mud, no more mercy. His eyes glowed faintly silver. The war begins now. That night, as Kaelin and Elena rested in the ruins of the old temple, she traced the faint glow where their blood had joined. What if we made a mistake? She whispered. Kaelin turned to her, his hand brushing her hair aside. Then we'll pay it together. And if the moon calls again, then we rise again. Until it stops. Their lips met beneath the dying firelight. A kiss not of victory, but of defiance. Outside, the wolves howled not in rage or sorrow, but in recognition. A new bond had been written into the bones of the earth. A love forged in blood, sealed by rebellion, and destined to challenge the gods. But far beyond the valley, beneath the sea of shadows, something stirred. Something old enough to remember the first moon. And it whispered a single word into the night. Reclamation. Chapter 6. The Kingdom of Shadows and Silver Blood. The world changed with dawn. Not in fire, but in silence. A stillness rolled across the Dravan Valley, the kind of stillness that came when something sacred had been broken or remade. Birds refused to sing. The trees leaned away from the temple ruins as though wary of what had awoken there. Elena stirred first. Her heartbeat no longer sounded entirely her own. It echoed faintly, doubled, resonating in her veins like a pulse she shared with someone unseen. Kaelin. He lay beside her, half buried in torn robes and silver ash, his breathing shallow but even. When she reached out, his skin was warm. The same warmth that had once felt foreign now vibrated inside her chest. It wasn't just connection, it was fusion. The blood oath had bound them more than the oracle had ever explained. Their souls were no longer separate threads. They were woven through one another, luminous and dangerous. When Kalen opened his eyes, the world stilled again. His irises shimmered like liquid metal, and for a heartbeat, Elena saw through him, the ancient curse still alive, coiled deep in his spirit, but now tempered by her light. "You shouldn't be awake," she murmured. "I don't think I've slept at all." His voice carried weight, the kind of exhaustion that came not from battle but from resurrection. They stood together, the ruins around them humming softly. The stone basin that had sealed their blood now held still water again, mirror-like, untouched. Elena leaned closer and saw their reflections not as two but as one, a single blur of silver and shadow, both faces shifting through the same light. Kalen reached for her hand. "Whatever this is," he said quietly, "it's not over. The moon won't rest now that we've rewritten its curse." Elena's expression hardened. "Then neither will we." Whispers trailed behind them like ghosts. "He's changed. Did you see his eyes? She's the cursed one. They say her blood sings to the dead." At the great hall's end, Eric stood waiting, armor black as a moonless night, his once bright silver eyes now dulled to iron. "You shouldn't have returned," Kalen stepped forward, voice calm but heavy. "It's still my keep." "Was," Eric corrected. "You gave it up when you bound yourself to her." Elena's voice sliced through the air, low and steady. "You mean when he broke the curse your kind feared for centuries?" Eric's jaw tightened. "You broke balance, not chains." The silence between the brothers thickened until it was nearly unbearable. It was Lyra who finally spoke, stepping from the shadows behind Eric, her eyes red-rimmed from sleepless nights. "Enough. Both of you." She turned to Kalen. "The council's gone. Half fled after the blood oath. The others, they wait for your word." Kalen exhaled slowly. "Then they'll have it. We rebuild, with or without their faith." Eric's voice dropped into a growl. "You'll lead them into ruin." Kalen's reply was ice. "Maybe, but it will be my ruin to command." Beyond the borders of Dravain, across the frozen plains, something darker stirred. A citadel built of obsidian and silence rose from the cliffs, the kingdom of Shadowspire. Inside its throne room, a figure cloaked in smoke watched visions of Kalen and Elena through a mirror of black glass. His name was Lord Varin, the Shadow Alpha, exiled centuries ago when his line was branded impure for consorting with dark magic. A grin curved his lips as the vision faded. The blood has awakened again. The oath fire burns in mortal veins. From the darkness behind him emerged Sable, his lieutenant, half wolf, half shadow, her eyes an unnatural violet. "You think this bond threatens us?" she asked. "No," Varin said, rising from his throne. "It completes us." He turned toward the window, where lightning cracked through the horizon. The moon's curse was never destruction. It was imprisonment. And now, thanks to Dravani's lost king, the gate has been opened. Sable tilted her head. "Then shall we walk through?" "Soon," he murmured. "But first we let them believe they've won." At Dravain's keep, unrest grew. Wolves loyal to Eric whispered that Kalen had brought ruin. Others believed he was the chosen Alpha reborn, destined to rewrite the order of the Pax. Elena felt the tension in every corridor. Guards paused when she passed. Servants lowered their heads. In the gardens, she overheard children whisper the word witch. And yet, when she looked up at the night sky, she saw the same thing Kaelin did, the moon, fuller than it had been in years, as if watching them. One evening she found Priestess Naira in the chapel ruins, kneeling before the cracked altar. "You warned us," Elena said softly. Naira's fingers traced the old runes. "I warned you that love was not salvation, but you also said it could change fate." Naira turned, her eyes glinting with something like sadness. "It can, but change is not always mercy." That night, thunder rolled across the mountains like a drumbeat of war. The keep's torches flared and died in the wind. Kaelin stood on the balcony overlooking the valley, rain soaking his hair, the moon a ghost behind storm clouds. He could feel the shift in the air, the bond's pulse beating in sync with the world's trembling heart. Elena joined him, drenched but unflinching. "They'll come for us," she said. "Let them, you can't fight everyone." "I don't need to," Kaelin replied quietly. "Only the one who started this, Eric." "No," he said, his gaze hardening toward the distant storm. "Something older, something watching." Lightning struck the far ridge, illuminating a shape, a tower of black stone, one that hadn't been there before. Elena's breath caught. "What is that?" Kaelin's hand tightened on the railing. "The kingdom of shadows." Thunder answered him. By dawn, Eric was gone, his armor abandoned, his mark of the Dravain line burned from his skin. In his chambers, a single note remained, 3 words written in blood: "He will return." Kaelin crushed the parchment in his hand. He didn't need to ask where his brother had gone. He already felt it, through the bond, through the pull of destiny. The shadows had claimed him. That night, in the quiet aftermath of storm and prophecy, Kaelin found Elena by the reflecting pool. Moonlight brushed her hair, turning it white at the edges. "Do you ever wish things were different?" she asked softly. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he knelt beside her, fingers tracing the silver mark that bound their veins. "No," he said finally. "I only wish we'd met before the gods decided our fate." She smiled faintly. "Maybe we still can, if we rewrite it." He leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. "Then let's make the moon watch." Their kiss was softer this time, not desperate, but sure. The kind of kiss that came after chaos, when love stopped being a battle and became a vow. Above them, the moon glowed brighter than it had in centuries, silver spilling across the valley like prophecy written in light. And far beyond the borders of their world, in the heart of Shadowspire, Lord Varin smiled. "Let them fall in love," he whispered. "It will make their ruin sweeter." Chapter 7. The Shadow Alpha's Return. The mountains bled silver that night. Snow fell not as flakes but as ash, soft grey, whispering of the dead moon's awakening. Far beyond Dravain, deep within the ravine where sunlight had never reached, Eric knelt before the throne of Shadowspire. The obsidian walls hummed faintly, alive with whispers that weren't wind. He had followed the pull of the curse, the same one Kaelin had defied, and it had led him here. Before him, Lord Varin watched, cloaked in smoke. His eyes glowed the faintest shade of crimson, as if reflecting a light no mortal flame could cast. "You came willingly," Varin said. "Few ever do." "You summoned me," Eric replied, voice stripped of defiance. "You whispered my name in dreams until I could hear nothing else." A faint smile curved Varin's lips. "Dreams are simply truths that have lost their way." He descended the steps, each movement soundless. Around him, tendrils of shadow swayed like the folds of night itself. "Your brother stole what was mine," Varin murmured, "and in doing so freed what should never have been freed." Eric's gaze darkened. Then you want him dead. I want him remembered, Varin corrected. As the one who opened the gate. You will help me close it, or drown beneath it. From the corner of the room, Sable stepped forward, violet eyes gleaming. Her presence made the air shift. Predatory, feline, faintly dangerous. He reeks of light, she said softly, of his brother's faith. Then burn it out, Varin replied. They bound Eric in the circle of runes carved into black stone. Blood spilled, his own, willingly. The liquid hissed as it met the runes, seeping into cracks that pulsed faintly with life. Sable's voice wove around him, low and melodic, speaking words that felt older than time. The air grew colder, his lungs tightening. Then came the pain. It wasn't the pain of the body, but of memory. He saw every moment he'd envied Kaylin, the first time their father had called one Alpha and the other Spare, the night he'd watched Kaylin crowned beneath the blood moon, the day he'd realized the people would always love his brother more. Varin's voice threaded through the visions. What you feel is not jealousy, Eric. It's the hunger of destiny denied. When Eric gasped, the shadows crawled up his arms, coiling around his veins like serpents. His pulse shifted, no longer silver but black fire. When the ritual ended, his eyes opened again. They were red as blood. Varin smiled. Rise, Shadow Alpha. Meanwhile, at the Dravane keep, Elena couldn't shake the unease. Even as peace returned to the valley, even as Kaylin restored the council and rebuilt the hall, something beneath her ribs felt wrong. She'd taken to walking the ramparts at night, watching the torches flicker in the distance. Each flame seemed smaller, as if afraid of the dark pressing in. Leora found her there, cloak drawn tight against the cold. You haven't slept, she said. Neither has he, Elena murmured, eyes fixed on the horizon. Kaylin? No, Elena whispered. The moon. Leora frowned. You sound like Naira. Maybe she was right. Maybe love wasn't meant to save us. It was meant to test how far we'd fall before we break. Leora hesitated before saying, Then pray we don't find out. That night, Kaylin dreamed. He was standing in the great hall, but it was empty, the banners torn, the thrones reduced to bone. In the silence a voice echoed. Brother. Eric stood at the far end of the room, his face half lit, half devoured by shadow. You left me, Eric said. You left me to rot under your light. You chose your path, Kaylin replied. No, Eric whispered. You chose it for me. The floor cracked beneath them, and Kaylin fell through darkness that felt like drowning in his own blood. When he woke, his hands were shaking. Elena stirred beside him. Kaylin? He didn't answer. He only stared at the moonlight pouring through the window, the faint shimmer of red buried beneath the silver. The moon was bleeding. Days later, the Crimson Council convened in Dravan's hall. They came from distant packs, some in armor, some in silk, all hungry for control. At the head of the table sat Kaylin, with Elena at his right and Terran at his left. The air was thick with tension. Lord Ivar spoke first, voice heavy with disdain. Rumor spreads that the Shadow Alpha walks again. Rumors die when you stop feeding them. Then feed us truth, Ivar challenged. Your brother's mark has been found burned into the black ridge stones. His blood ties your name to his curse. Elena rose. You would condemn him for blood he didn't spill? Ivar sneered. You forget your place, Witch Queen. Before Kaylin could speak, the torches along the walls extinguished one by one. Darkness swallowed the room, and in that darkness a voice spoke. He doesn't need your throne, it whispered. He already wears one. When light returned, every council member's mark was bleeding black. By midnight, panic had spread. Servants fled. Bells tolled. Wolves howled at a sky that had turned the color of rust. Kaelin stood at the balcony as lightning split the horizon, revealing an approaching army. Dark figures, thousands strong, their armor glinting like obsidian. The Shadow Legion had come. Elena joined him, her gown soaked by rain, her eyes fierce despite the fear trembling behind them. "We can't fight this," she said. "We can't run either," Kaelin replied. "There's no place left untouched by shadow." "Then what?" Kaelin turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Then we fight the curse from within it." He stepped back from the railing, lifting his hand. A circle of silver light ignited around them, ancient glyphs, older than language. Elena gasped. "Kaelin, that's forbidden. So is dying for nothing." As the glyphs flared, the moon cracked through the storm clouds, blood-red, full and watching. The first to cross the keep's threshold was Eric. No longer brother, no longer man, he was something reborn. His armor shimmered like liquid shadow, and his voice carried the echo of a dozen others when he spoke. "I came to finish what love began." Kaelin stepped forward. "You came to destroy what you never understood. I came to destroy you." Their gazes locked. The brothers' bond, once built of loyalty, now pulsed with mirrored rage. Elena reached for Kaelin's arm. "Don't," she whispered. The air shattered. Eric moved first, faster than thought, striking with claws of black flame. Kaelin blocked the blow with his own power, silver fire meeting dark magic, moonlight colliding with midnight. The force sent cracks racing across the floor. Elena stumbled back, caught between terror and awe. "Stop this," she screamed. "You're both dying for a curse that doesn't care." But neither heard. The hall itself began to crumble under the pressure. Taryn grabbed her arm. "We have to go." "No," Elena said. "If they end this alone, we all die." She tore free, racing toward the two alphas as light and shadow flared around them like stars colliding. And for one impossible moment, as Eric's claws found Kaelin's heart and Kaelin's light burned through his brother's darkness, Elena threw herself between them. Her scream split the night. The moon answered, and everything went white. Chapter 8. The Queen Between Worlds. The world ended in silence, not with thunder, not with screams, just silence. Then came the whisper of falling petals, light, weightless, unending. Elena opened her eyes and saw them drifting through the air, glowing faintly blue like embers of a forgotten moon. She tried to move, but her body felt made of glass, each breath a crack, each heartbeat a question. She was lying in a garden that didn't belong to the living. The trees had no roots. They floated, their branches curved into spirals that reached for an unseen sky. Pools of water shimmered like mirrors, and each reflection held a different version of her face, alive, dead, dreaming. "Where am I?" Her voice barely stirred the air. "Between what was lost," said a voice, "and what is yet to be found." Elena turned. A woman stood before her, cloaked in silver mist, her eyes old enough to have watched the first star burn out. She wore no crown, but the world seemed to bend around her. "You," Elena whispered, "you're—" "The moon remembers many names," the woman said softly. "You may call me what your soul already knows." Elena trembled. "Naira," the goddess smiled, a faint, bittersweet curve. "You remember, am I dead?" "No." Naira's gaze flickered upward. "Not yet. But death lingers close enough to taste you." Elena's throat tightened. "Kaelin, Eric, they still fight," Naira said, "as brothers always have, one to rule, one to ruin. But neither understands that their fates were never separate from yours." She stepped closer, her feet barely brushing the ground. "Do you know why love burns brighter than the sun, child?" "Because it ends," Elena whispered. Naira smiled again, this time sad, because it remembers. With a wave of her hand, Naira called forth a vision in the air, Kalen kneeling in the ruins of the hall, holding Elena's body. Elena. His whisper was the sound of something breaking that could never be mended. Around him the Dravane wolves stood in silence. Some bowed, others wept. But Kalen didn't move. He only pressed his forehead against her still hand, the blood from his wounds staining her gown like roses. Naira turned to Elena. "Do you see what love does when it believes it's lost its moon?" Elena reached out, wanting to touch him, to scream that she was here, that she wasn't gone. But her hand passed through the vision like smoke. "He can't hear me," she whispered. The goddess lifted her hand again. The petals turned to light, forming symbols in the air. Ancient sigils Elena had once seen carved into the walls of the old cathedral. "You are not only the Alpha's queen," Naira said. "You are the last of my bloodline, the vessel of the moon's curse and its cure." Cure? The world was built on balance. When shadow rose, light followed. But the gods grew jealous of mortal love. They tore the halves apart, gave one the gift of fury, the other the burden of memory. "Kalen and Eric," Elena breathed. "Yes," Naira said, "two halves of the same creation. You, Elena, are the bridge they lost." The air trembled as she spoke. The stars flickered like heartbeat pulses, alive, responsive. "If you return to the world," Naira warned, "you will not return the same. The power that sleeps inside you will awaken. You will no longer walk as woman or wolf, but as what was once divine. And if I stay," Naira's gaze softened, "then love dies with you. The brothers devour each other, and the curse consumes the earth." Elena closed her eyes, trembling. Her heart ached, not for herself, but for the man who had knelt in ruin, believing she was gone. "Then I'll go back." Naira stepped forward, placing a hand over her heart. Her touch burned, not pain but recognition. The petals whirled faster, forming a storm of light around them. "Then remember this," Naira whispered. "You are not the moon's daughter. You are its echo. You will carry both love and loss in equal measure." What does that mean? That even gods cannot save what must be sacrificed. The world split. Kalen was kneeling still when the wind shifted. The torches flickered. The storm broke open, and from the ruin a single breath, faint but real. Elena's chest rose. "Kalen," she murmured, voice soft as dawn. "Elena?" She opened her eyes, glowing faintly blue, the same light that had once belonged to Naira. Kalen cradled her, his tears falling into her hair. "I thought I lost you." "You did," she whispered, "but the moon gave me back." Behind them, the shadows stirred. Eric stood at the far end of the hall, bleeding, barely upright, but alive. His crimson eyes locked on Elena, and for the first time something flickered behind them. Not rage, not envy, recognition. "You crossed the veil," he said. "You've seen her. Naira showed me what we broke." Kalen's hand tightened around hers. "What does she want?" Elena turned toward the window, where the moon hung low and trembling. "She wants her sons to stop destroying the world she made." Eric laughed bitterly. "And if we refuse?" Elena's gaze sharpened, her voice steady and strange. "Then she'll let it burn." Every candle flared blue, and for the first time since the war began, both Alphas looked at her not as queen, not as mate, but as something neither man nor god could defy. The moonborn queen had returned. Chapter 9. The blood oath of brothers. Night fell heavy over Dravan, not the gentle hush of twilight, but a suffocating dark that felt alive, crawling through the ruins, whispering secrets to the ash. The city still bore its scars, the shattered spires, the torn banners, the streets littered with the bones of once proud wolves. Rain traced the remnants of blood on the stones, silver under moonlight. Kalen stood on the edge of the throne hall's broken balcony, bare-chested, the storm painting him in shades of shadow. His tattoos, a map of scars, moon sigils and forgotten vows, pulsed faintly like living things. He wasn't just an alpha anymore. He was the ghost of a kingdom resurrected in flesh. Behind him, footsteps echoed. Eric, the brother he had once sworn to kill. For a moment, neither spoke, only the sound of the storm breathing between them. "You should have stayed buried," Eric muttered finally, voice low, rough as stone. "So should you," Kalen replied without turning. Their words were daggers wrapped in history, forged by betrayal, tempered by loss. Eric moved closer, his black cloak torn, his hair streaked with soot and rain. His eyes glowed that dark crimson hue that once made kingdoms tremble. But now, something else burned in them. Not hatred, not envy, something quieter. He looked at Kalen not as rival or monster, but as what he truly was. Family. "She's different now," Eric said quietly. "Elena?" "Yes. The goddess left her mark. You saw it, that light." "I saw our mother's curse," Kalen said through clenched teeth. A silence stretched. The wind howled like a wounded animal. "Do you regret it?" Eric asked. "What?" "Loving her." Kalen turned at last, eyes glinting silver under the rain. "You don't regret what you were born for?" Eric almost smiled. "Then we're doomed. Down below, the surviving wolves of both packs, Dravan and Lyros, were gathering for the first time in history. Two armies once divided by blood, now huddled beneath the same collapsing roof. Among them were names whispered only in songs. And Thalen, Kalen's old beta, scarred and loyal, who once buried his own son to protect the pack's honor. And Maris, Eric's shadow sister, a witch with eyes like molten gold and a voice that could command lightning. Fen, the boy with no wolf, whose courage had earned him a place among the warriors. And Era, the healer who spoke to the dead, her hands stained with both life and sorrow. They gathered because Elena had asked it. When she entered the hall, the storm dimmed. Every eye lifted. She wore no crown, but moonlight itself draped her like a cloak. Her hair, once dark, shimmered faintly with silver strands. A soft glow pulsed beneath her skin, not human, not wolf, something divine and sorrowful. Kalen's heart stopped. Elena walked past the wolves, her gaze solemn, her voice steady. "Tonight, the moon calls us not as enemies," she began, "but as survivors. The curse that divided our bloodlines wasn't born from hatred, it was born from fear, fear that love would make us weak." Her eyes found Kalen's, then Eric's. "But love is what makes us rise. For a heartbeat, even the storm listened." Then she drew a blade, the Lunaris fang, forged from the bone of the first Alpha. "Tonight," she said, "we bind what was broken, not by peace, not by blood, by choice." Kalen stepped forward. Eric followed. Each brother placed a hand over the blade. Their eyes locked, not in rivalry, but in recognition. Elena's voice dropped to a whisper that felt older than time. "Repeat after me. Under moon and shadow, I renounce the hatred that fed me. I stand beside my brother until the world's last breath." Kalen spoke first, his voice a low growl. "Under moon and shadow, Eric followed, his words like fire. I renounce the hatred that fed me. Together, I stand beside my brother until the world's last breath. Lightning split the sky. The blade flared, searing their palms. Blood dripped onto the stone and hissed, turning to silver smoke that spiraled upward. The air pulsed. The wolves below bowed instinctively as the oath of blood and moon bound them. For the first time in centuries, Dravan and Lyros howled as one. But as their voices rose, something else stirred beneath the castle, in the earth itself. Eira felt it first, a vibration that made the blood in her veins turn to ice. "Do you feel that?" she whispered to Maris. "Yes," the witch murmured. "Something ancient, something that's been waiting." The ground trembled. The moon dimmed. A voice, faint but deep as the sea, coiled through their minds. Blood reunites, and so awakens what was chained. Maris's golden eyes widened. They broke the wrong curse. Up above, Elena stiffened. The silver glow around her flickered. Kaelin caught her as she stumbled, the blade slipping from her grasp. "Elena, it's not over," she gasped. "We woke something that was never meant to wake." Eric's gaze darkened. "What did Naira tell you? That love demands sacrifice?" Her eyes lifted, and in them Kaelin saw the reflection of something vast and monstrous stirring beneath the world. The moon cracked. The rain turned to ash. The wolves fell silent. And somewhere deep in the catacombs below, a heartbeat older than any god began to stir. The brothers looked at each other. Their bond had been forged in blood, but now the price of it would be their world. Chapter 10. The Heart Beneath the Mountain. The storm died at dawn. Rain still clung to the ruins, dripping from the carved stone faces of old kings, tears that had turned to dew. The wolves slept where they had fallen after the blood oath, their bodies curled in exhaustion, their dreams thick with the residue of magic. But beneath all that peace, something pulsed, something old. Kaelin felt it before anyone else, a vibration deep in the marrow, a call beneath the skin, like a heart too big to belong to any living thing. He stood barefoot on the cold marble floor of the ruined throne hall, staring at the cracks in the stone where blood and moonlight had mixed. Each vein shimmered faintly, like roots of a tree made of silver. The mountain was alive, and it was calling. Behind him, Elena stirred from where she slept against the steps. Her hair was matted, her fingers clutching the torn remnants of the ceremonial blade, but her glow had dimmed. The divine hum that once surrounded her had sunk low, almost gone. Kaelin knelt beside her, brushing a thumb against her cheek. "You burn too much light," he murmured. "You need to rest." Her eyes fluttered open. "It's calling you too, isn't it?" He hesitated, then nodded. "We woke something that wants to finish what we started. Then we go," she whispered, "before it comes to us." Eric's voice came from the shadows. "You're not going alone." He stepped into the faint light, flanked by Maris and Thalen. Behind them, Eira carried her satchel of bone charms, and Fen, the boy with no wolf, clutched a lantern that flickered uneasily. "If there's a heart beneath this mountain," Eric said, "then it belongs to our bloodline, and we end what our ancestors began." Kaelin's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. For once, he didn't want to. They descended through the catacombs in silence. The air changed the deeper they went, colder, thicker, humming faintly with an undercurrent that made their skin prickle. Ancient carvings lined the walls, worn and half swallowed by time, wolves kneeling before a moon that wept fire, crowns cracking, eyes turned to ash. Eira whispered old prayers under her breath. Fenn's lantern cast trembling light across their faces, distorting their shadows. At one point, they passed a door sealed by molten iron and black vines that pulsed like veins. Maris pressed her palm against it, eyes flickering gold. "This isn't metal," she whispered. "It's flesh." The door breathed. They moved on quickly. Hours passed. The tunnels bent and looped like a maze built by madness. The further they went, the louder the heartbeat became. Slow, heavy, patient. At last they reached a cavern so vast it seemed to have swallowed the world. The roof shimmered with trapped moonlight that had found its way through cracks in the earth. The floor was a lake, black and still, except for the faint ripples caused by that unseen heartbeat. At the center of the lake stood an altar of bone. Upon it lay a body, or what was left of one, a creature larger than any wolf, its ribs caged in silver, its skull crowned by horns that spiraled like branches. Its chest rose and fell faintly. A whisper moved through the air like wind across a grave. "Who wakes the heart of the first?" Era fell to her knees. "The first Alpha," she breathed. Kaelin stepped forward. "We come to end the curse." The whisper turned to laughter, low, ancient, inhuman. "End it. You are its pulse, Kaelin of Dravan. The curse was never chains, it was memory. You are my echo." Lightning flared beneath the black water, illuminating shapes, hundreds of them, bodies bound in the depths, wolves turned to stone mid-howl. Elena's breath caught. What did they do to him? "They feared me," the voice murmured. "They broke me into bloodlines, Dravan, Lyros, all shards of one soul." Eric's hand tightened on his blade. "Then to end the curse, we must reunite the soul," Kaelin finished softly. He looked at Elena, realization dawning like a wound opening. "That's why it's calling. It needs us to finish it." The creature's eye, one vast, silver and filled with sorrow, opened. Not all that is broken should be whole again. The cavern exploded into motion. The water rose in spirals, taking shape, wolves made of shadow and bone, the lost kings of the bloodlines. Maris screamed words of power, golden fire bursting from her palms. Eric cut through the spectral forms, but his blade met nothing. Era's charms glowed and shattered. Elena stood frozen, the light in her veins flaring again, too bright. Kaelin ran to her, grabbing her shoulders. "Don't let it use you. It's not using me," she gasped. "It's calling me." The heartbeat pounded. The air thickened with the scent of rain and burning silver. The first Alpha's voice thundered through them. "The war you think you can end began with love, and love will end it again." Then the cavern walls cracked. The lake drained in a violent rush, revealing beneath it a heart, massive, still beating, made of moonstone and bone. Veins of light stretched from it into the tunnels. Kaelin fell to his knees, clutching his chest. His pulse matched the rhythm. "It's me," he whispered. "It's inside me." Elena took his hand, tears streaking her dirt-stained face. "Then we save you, or die trying." She turned to Eric, her voice trembling but firm. "You wanted unity. You wanted peace. Then help me bind him before the heart consumes him." Eric nodded. Maris and Era joined, forming a circle, their chants intertwined, old words in lost tongues. Kaelin screamed as light tore through him, the mark on his chest flaring white-hot. His tattoos burned, rearranging into new patterns. The mountain shook. The heart beneath them began to crack. When the light finally dimmed, the cavern was still. The lake was gone. The body of the first Alpha had turned to dust. Kaelin lay motionless, his chest rising faintly. Elena knelt beside him, pressing her ear to his heart. A beat, weak but steady. Eric stood apart, staring into the empty pit. "Is it over?" Era's voice was barely a whisper. No curse dies without taking something with it. Elena looked up. The glow that once surrounded her was fading, leaving her eyes hollow but at peace. "He's free," she said softly, "and so is the mountain." She kissed Kaelin's forehead. "But freedom always costs." She smiled faintly, eyes closing, and when the light left her skin for the last time, the mountain exhaled a long, sorrowful sigh and was still. Chapter 11. The Kingdom Without a Queen. For 3 nights the mountain did not sleep. Its veins still pulsed with the memory of what had happened, the echo of heartbeats long gone, the shimmer of moonlight that refused to fade from its stones. The world above thought the war had ended, that peace had returned. But peace was not what lingered. Grief was. Kaelin awoke to it. He lay on the shattered marble floor of the throne hall, the same hall where Elena had breathed her last light into his heart. The dawn spilled in through the broken ceiling, pale and gold, settling over her cloak, the only thing left of her that didn't vanish with the light. He reached for it. His fingers trembled. The fabric was warm still, as if her soul hadn't yet decided to leave. "She's gone," Eric said quietly behind him. His voice was low, stripped of its usual edge. Kaelin didn't answer. He couldn't. His throat was raw, his mind an endless loop of the last thing she said. "He's free." Free. The word burned like acid. Because what was freedom worth when the only person who believed in it was gone? Outside, the survivors rebuilt. Wolves and humans alike, the last remnants of kingdoms once divided, now worked side by side, their blood still drying on the stones they lifted. Maris commanded them with quiet precision. Her golden hair was singed, her once fierce eyes soft with exhaustion. Eira had lost her sight in the final surge of light, yet she walked as if guided by something deeper. They spoke in whispers when Kaelin passed. They called him the Reborn, the heart of Dravane, the Alpha of 2 worlds. But he hated every title. He had never wanted to be a god. The wolves howled each night for Elena, their cries carrying through the mountain passes, long and mournful. Some said the moonlight flickered when they howled, as if the heavens themselves remembered her name. Kaelin didn't join them. He couldn't. Instead, he sat in the old courtyard where the first flowers had begun to bloom through the cracks. Her cloak was always beside him, draped over the arm of his chair like a shadow that refused to fade. On the 7th night, as the moon reached its full bloom, a stranger came through the mountain gates. She wore a cloak of white fur, her face hidden beneath a veil embroidered with silver threads. Her steps made no sound, not even on the gravel. The wolves lowered their heads as she passed, some whimpering as if in recognition. She came straight to Kaelin, and when she spoke, her voice was not her own. "She lives where the heart was buried." Kaelin rose sharply. "Who are you?" The woman lifted her veil. Her eyes were mirrors, pure silver, reflecting him perfectly. "I am the echo, the voice left behind by the one who burned herself into your blood." He felt the air leave his lungs. "Elena, her body is gone," the echo said softly. "But her soul sleeps, not beyond, but within. The mountain is her tomb and her heartbeat. If you listen, you will hear her." Kaelin's chest constricted. He looked toward the mountain's heart, where the cavern had sealed itself in crystal. "Then I'll go to her," he said. "I'll bring her back." The echo smiled faintly. "You can't bring back the sun without burning the world again." And before he could speak, she was gone, her form dissolving into motes of white light that scattered like dust on the wind. That night, Kaelin walked alone through the ruins. He crossed the empty villages where wolves had once danced beneath blood moons. He passed the river where Elena had washed the war paint from his skin the night before their final battle. Every step was a prayer, every breath a curse. When he reached the mouth of the sealed cavern, he dropped to his knees. The crystals that had grown there shimmered faintly, like frozen moonlight. He pressed his palm against the surface. Warm. "Elena," he whispered, "if you're there, I need you to hear me." His voice broke. "You told me the curse was memory, that to be free we had to remember what we were. But I remember you now, every breath, every word, every touch, and I don't want to be free of it." The crystals pulsed once, then again, and in the faint hum beneath his hand, a voice stirred. "Then don't be—" He froze. The air shifted, and for a heartbeat he swore he could see her, the outline of her figure in the shimmer, her eyes soft, her lips curved in that half-sad smile she always gave before she said something that would break him. "Live," she whispered. "That's how you keep me." Then the light dimmed again, and silence returned. Kalen bowed his head against the crystal, tears spilling freely. The mountain glowed faintly, answering his grief with its own quiet heartbeat. Months passed. Spring bled into summer. The wolves rebuilt the citadel stone by stone, its spires rising again into the mist. The banners of Dravan and Lyros were joined at the center, a silver moon over a crimson flame. When the time came, the pack gathered before the new throne. Maris stepped forward first, holding a crown made not of gold, but of woven moonsteel and ash, forged from the remains of the old world. "The world will remember her name," she said, "but it will follow yours." Kalen took the crown in both hands, staring at it for a long time. Then he turned to the gathered pack. "I am not king because I won a war," he said quietly. "I am king because I lost what I loved most, and she taught me that love, even broken, is still worth building from." He placed the crown on his head, but his eyes were on the horizon, where the first light of dawn touched the peaks. "From this day, we are not wolves or humans. We are one heart, one people, one promise." The wolves howled again, but this time it wasn't grief, it was hope. Later that night, Kalen returned to the courtyard, the one where the flowers still grew through the cracks. He laid Elena's cloak on the stone bench, beneath the silver tree that had sprouted from the heart of the mountain itself. Its leaves shimmered faintly, whispering in the wind. He sat in silence, watching the stars. "You see it, don't you?" he murmured. "What we built." For a long moment, there was only the breeze. And then softly, so faint he could have imagined it, came her reply, "I never stopped." He closed his eyes and smiled, the kind that breaks and heals at once. And somewhere deep within the mountain, the great heart pulsed once more, not as a curse, but as a promise. Chapter 12. The Echo of the Moon Queen. The night the mountain whispered her name again, Kalen was not dreaming. He hadn't dreamed in months. Dreams were a mercy for the unbroken, for those who still had someone waiting when they opened their eyes. But Kalen had learned to live without mercy. The fire in the hearth had gone low, the embers sighing like dying stars. The room was quiet, too quiet for a citadel reborn. Outside, the wolves slept beneath a new dawn of peace. Inside, the Alpha sat alone, the crown of moonsteel lying forgotten on the table beside his hand. Then he heard it. Soft, barely a whisper. Like the world inhaling before a storm. Kalen. His head lifted. The sound had come from the far end of the room, from the balcony that looked down into the heart of the valley. The wind stirred the curtains, carrying a faint scent, lilies and rain. Her scent. He rose slowly, the chair scraping against the stone. Each step toward the balcony felt like a memory reopening, a wound learning to breathe again. The moon above was full, haloed in clouds that shimmered like silver flame. And there, in the center of that moonlight, she stood. Not flesh, not ghost. A shimmer, a breath away from real, Elena. Her hair fell in waves of pale light, her eyes deep and endless. The storm he'd once drowned in. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice breaking on the words. She smiled. The same soft, devastating smile she'd worn when she kissed him before the last battle. "Neither should you," she whispered. "But here we are." When he reached for her, his hand passed through air, but the air shivered, as though her soul trembled against his. "You burned yourself out," he said. "You gave me this peace. Why come back?" Elena stepped closer, her form flickering slightly, light unraveling and rethreading around her. "Because peace isn't life, Kaylin," she said softly. "It's a pause, and pauses end." He frowned. "I don't understand." "You will," she murmured. "There's something you left behind." Her fingers brushed the air near his chest, where his heart beat, heavy and slow. "Do you feel it?" she asked. He did. A faint warmth beneath his ribs, like a heartbeat that wasn't his own. "It's growing," she whispered. "My echo. Our echo." Kaylin's breath hitched. "You thought the bond ended when I died," she said. "But the bond isn't light or blood. It's seed and root. You carry it now." Her eyes shone with a light that was almost tears. "A new moon is coming, Kaylin, and with it, a child born of both our worlds." He staggered back, staring at her in disbelief. "That's impossible. Everything about us was impossible." And before he could speak again, her form flickered, dissolving into a shower of silver dust that drifted toward the floor. The wind rose sharply, scattering the particles into the night. "Elena!" His voice cracked as the last trace of her vanished into the dawn's pale glow. Only the echo of her words remained. "A child born of both our worlds." By morning, the citadel was awake. Smoke curled from the rebuilt towers, and the sounds of laughter, rare, fragile laughter, carried through the halls. Kaylin walked among his people, but his mind was far away. The scent of lilies haunted him, curling through his senses even under the thick smell of steel and ash. Then, near the edge of the training courtyard, he saw her, a young woman bent over a basin, washing blood from her hands. Maris, no longer the commander of armies, but the healer of their wounded. "Maris," Kaylin called. She turned, surprised. "Your Majesty." "Don't call me that," he said. "You've known me too long." She smiled faintly, but her eyes betrayed her, sharp, knowing, always seeing more than she should. "You haven't been sleeping," she said. "I saw her," Kaylin said simply. Maris froze. "Elena?" He nodded. She spoke of a child, an echo, the color drained from her face. "Then it's begun." Kaylin stepped forward. "What do you mean?" Maris took a breath, glancing around before speaking. "Before she died, Elena came to me. She asked me to keep something safe." She reached beneath her cloak and pulled out a small satchel of mooncloth, sealed with the symbol of the crescent wolf. Inside was a pendant, silver, shaped like a heart split by lightning. Kaylin took it in his hand, feeling warmth radiate from it. "She said that if her soul ever found its way back," Maris whispered, "this would find its way to you. And when it glows again—" "Then what?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Then her time isn't done." That night, Kaylin stood on the balcony again. The pendant hung heavy around his neck, the metal warm against his skin. The moon rose higher, round, perfect, merciless. The wind picked up, scattering the ashes of old wars into the sky. Then, faint at first, the pendant began to glow. Not bright, not violent, just a slow, steady pulse, like a heartbeat. He closed his eyes, and for the first time since the battle, he smiled. "You always did come back to finish what you started," he whispered. The glow deepened, spreading up his arm, tracing veins of light beneath his skin like vines of silver fire. The air thrummed. Far below, in the valley where the first flowers had bloomed through the ruins, a strange light rose from the earth, forming the shape of a wolf made entirely of moonlight. The pack began to howl. Kaelin lifted his head. The moon pulsed once, twice, and then split the clouds with its brilliance. Somewhere in the world below, a woman cried out, a newborn's wail answering her. The echo had found its voice. Later, when the mountain had gone quiet again, Kaelin returned to the courtyard where her cloak still rested. He placed the glowing pendant beside it and whispered, "I'll find her." The wind rose, carrying a familiar voice through the trees, soft, laughing, and unbearably alive. "You already have." He looked up, and for a heartbeat, the moon above flickered like a heartbeat of its own. Chapter 13. The Child of Echo and Fire. The night bled silver over the mountain, and somewhere beneath that restless sky, a cry broke the stillness. A newborn's cry, sharp, trembling, alive. Kaelin felt it before he heard it. The pulse that rippled through the air was the same rhythm that haunted his dreams, the same pulse that had lived inside him since Elena's ghost whispered, "Our echo." He stood at the edge of the rebuilt balcony, the pendant glowing faintly against his chest, and for a moment the air itself seemed to bow. "You found your voice," he murmured. "Now I'll find you." He rode alone for 3 days, the moon his only witness, his horse a silent shadow beneath him. The forest whispered with life, but not all of it friendly. Old magics lingered here, remnants of the curse that had once shackled his soul. On the 4th night, he found a village. It was small, hidden in a hollow of the hills, smoke rising lazily from clay chimneys. The scent of bread and wet soil drifted on the air. And then, faint, almost lost in the wind, he heard it again, a child's cry. Kaelin dismounted, his boots sinking into the mud. He followed the sound through narrow streets until it led him to a cottage at the edge of the wood. The door was ajar. Light flickered inside, and standing there, cradling a bundle wrapped in mooncloth, was a woman. Not Elena. But something in her eyes made his heart falter. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly, her voice low, guarded. "Neither should you," Kaelin answered, almost smiling. And yet, she studied him, her eyes flicking to the pendant that glowed faintly at his chest. "You're him," she whispered. "The cursed Alpha." "Not cursed," he said. "Not anymore. Then what are you now?" He looked at the bundle in her arms and his voice softened. "Searching." She hesitated, then lifted the blanket slightly. A small face peeked out, pale skin, eyes of molten silver. The child's gaze met his, unblinking, ancient. Kaelin's breath caught, his heart thundered. "She has your eyes," he whispered. "And her mother's soul," the woman said. "Elena came to me, months before the war ended. She said that if the moon ever called again, I was to keep the child safe, until the Alpha came. Why didn't you send word?" "Because the moon doesn't always call in peace," she said simply. "And because men like you always bring storms." The baby stirred, small fingers curling into the fabric of the blanket. A faint warmth radiated from her. Not fever, but power. Kaelin knelt, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for her. The moment his fingers brushed the edge of the cloth, a spark leapt between them, silver and gold. The child blinked once, then smiled, and in that instant, the pendant at his throat flared bright, casting both of them in a halo of light. The woman stepped back, shielding her eyes. "What's happening?" she gasped. Kaelin's voice was soft, awed. The bond knows its blood. The baby cooed, the air humming with quiet energy. The wooden walls groaned, the lanterns flickering. Outside, the wind rose like a song, ancient, wild, and full of mourning. He held the child close, the warmth of her skin steadying him in a way nothing else ever had. "Elena," he whispered, his voice shaking, "you really did it." Maris arrived the next morning, exhausted, mud-streaked, and furious. "You couldn't wait," she scolded. "You go riding into cursed woods alone and think I wouldn't notice?" Kaelin almost smiled. "You always notice." She froze when she saw the child. The color drained from her face. "Moon and flame," she breathed. "She's real. She's ours," Kaelin said. "Then you know what that means." He frowned. "Say it." "The prophecy of eclipsed blood," Maris whispered. "A child born from Alpha Flame and Moon's blessing will either unite the packs under one sky or end them all." The words hung heavy in the air. Kaelin looked down at the child, her tiny fingers gripping the edge of his cloak. "She's just a baby," he said. "And so were you," Maris replied. Outside, the wind howled. Far beyond the valley, another Alpha watched the same moon, crimson-edged and rising over black mountains. His name was Theron, and he had once served under Kaelin before betrayal split their packs apart. He stood on the balcony of his fortress, eyes glinting like embers. "So it's true," he murmured. "The cursed Alpha breeds heirs." A figure stepped from the shadows behind him, a woman cloaked in dark silk, her eyes sharp as blades. "And if the prophecy is true," she said, "the child could bring ruin to us all." "No," Theron said, "she will bring me power. The blood of both worlds, moon and fire, belongs on my throne." He turned toward the horizon, where a single beam of light broke through the clouds, faint silver gold, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Find her," he ordered, "and bring me the child of the echo." Back in the village, Kaelin knew the peace wouldn't last. The wind carried whispers, riders moving through the night, wolves gathering at the borders. He looked down at the child, her eyes glowing faintly as if the moon itself watched through them. "Your mother died to end a war," he murmured, "but it seems fate wasn't done with us yet." Maris sighed, glancing toward the forest. "When is it ever?" Kaelin stood, his expression hardening into the calm of an Alpha who had walked through hell once and knew the way back. "Then we meet fate halfway." He turned toward the rising dawn, the light breaking across his face, fierce and defiant. Behind him the child laughed softly, a sound so pure it broke the silence of the mountains. And in that laughter, something ancient awoke. If this story made your heart race and your soul ache, subscribe, follow, or share to keep the fire of the moonbound alive. The next chapter of Fate is already written, waiting for you.